And can I just ask the last minute questions about how do you want to deal with the questions as you go or after the presentations?
I think that if we do it at the end of the presentation, that will be more organized. So, but you can invite, and we can invite people to ask questions as we go and we advance during the presentation. And then at the end, we can just open the chat and go over those. I think that will be best.
Great, thank you. Okay, let's start then. Hello, everyone. I'm so excited today because actually we have, today is the Uzbekistan Independence Day. It's a day when it was declared independence 29 years ago. And we have a great gift, I think. So we have a Duolingo team with us to talk to our audience. Thank you to each of you. So today we have 3 team members of Duolingo. Sam, he's the International Engagement Manager. Jeff, Senior Assessment Scientist, and Octavia, International Engagement Manager. Thank you so much, and over to you.
Wonderful. We're so happy to be able to join you, especially on a day that's so important in Uzbekistani history. That's fabulous. Thank you for the introduction. My name is Sam Fleischman, and I work with international universities and counselors and advisors for students who are looking at universities around the world. The reason I'm in this role is for 13 years, I worked as a school counselor in Hong Kong and Singapore, advising high school students to universities, whether that be in Central Asia, the UK, Canada, the US, or Australia. I'll pass it over to Jeff to let him introduce himself as well. Or if Jeff.
Hello, everyone. Nope, I had a quick interruption. You know, door open, kids came in. So I solved that quick. Thank you, Sam. Yep, I'm Jeff LaFleur. I am a senior assessment scientist at Duolingo. I've been here about 1.5 years. Prior to joining Duolingo, I was an assistant professor at the University of Hawaii at Manoa in their second language studies department, where I taught and did research on issues related to language assessment and validity and quantitative research methods. And prior to that, I was the director of language assessment at the Center for English as a Second Language at the University of Kentucky. And since I've been at Duolingo, I've been working on building up our research program and evaluating the validity evidence for the Duolingo English test. And I'll pass it off to Octavio.
Thank you, Jeff. My name is Octavio Hidalgo. I'm the International Partnership for International Engagement Manager for the Duolingo English test. And I'm in charge of conversations and international institutions that they want to use the Duolingo English test. For the last couple of months, I've been in touch with Uzbekistan universities that they've been using the test. So really excited to speak with all of you today. Before joining Duolingo, I was working at Google, and before working at Google, I was an international student. So I have quite a good background in terms of taking an English proficiency test. And now I work for a company that altogether we do this, and we are offering a service that we believe that is actually helping a lot of students and institutions to improve that process of recruiting internationally and admissions requirements. And we're going to talk about that today and furthermore about the test and the details. So really excited to speak with you today. Feel free to send your questions via the chat, and we're going to review those at the end of the presentation. So let's get started. A little bit about Duolingo. Yes, we are the same company. I'm pretty sure that many of the people online today watching, either you're using Duolingo or you have used it before. We teach languages for free, and our mission is to provide free access to education. We are making education accessible to all. Worldwide, we teach more than 30 languages for free, and we have over 300 million users. A couple of years ago, we saw that the people using the app at the end of the process, they needed to certify their English level. And when we assessed the market for English proficiency tests, we saw there was a challenge for the professionals, the students, and some of the institutions using other English proficiency tests to provide a service that could be accessible anywhere, anytime. And at the same time, it was quite expensive. So we decided to create the Duolingo English test 5 years ago. The first 2 years, it was basically research and development. Dr. Jeff is going to mention more about that. But we saw a huge need. And since then, I've been with Duolingo for over 4 years. At that time, when I joined Duolingo, we had only 12 institutions accepting the test. As it is right now, we have over 2,500. So I have seen the growth in terms of the number of institutions using us. And I'm really excited to share all that knowledge with you guys today. Also very important about the test and the background is that we use it part of the same technology that we use in the Learning app. We work with adaptive technologies and artificial intelligence that makes the test unique in its way. And also one of the main features of the test is that it's also accessible with the same premise that I just mentioned in the previous slide of Duolingo and accessibility internationally. Behind the mission and something that I share is that our CEO, he's from Latin America, Luis, he is from Guatemala. And for me and him, it happened the same. We couldn't take our TOEFL in our home country. We had to take a trip to a different country to certify our English level. So we always discuss this part, and we know we come from the same background in terms of struggling to access a test center. And without this option at that time, we had to go to a different country. So, and just for you to know, Luis also founded a very famous company that I'm very sure that you guys know about, CAPTCHA and reCAPTCHA, those things that you have to complete when you have to submit a form or Facebook or something like that. He was the creator of that before Duolingo, but he decided to bring all that technology and knowledge before that he had before creating our company, but giving back something to society, in this case with free education and with a test that can be more accessible and applicable for all the students internationally. So let's talk a little bit about the test and its features. First of all, it's accessible. The students and professionals can take it anywhere, anytime. They don't need to go to a test center, no appointments needed. It's accessible online. You can take it from home. With a computer that has a webcam and a microphone. And you don't need to schedule a date, which in some cases can be also demanding for some students. It's only $49 for the candidates to take the test. And when you compare this, and I'm going to show you later on a slide with a table and a comparison with the other English proficiency tests, this is quite more convenient for the students, okay? Also very important to mention is comprehensive. We use adaptive technologies to measure the full English proficiency of the students. We measure the 4 linguistic skills: speaking, listening, reading, and writing. And also the test was created following the CEFR, the international standard for language assessment. And very importantly, at the end of the process, when you receive your score, you're gonna receive a certificate that comes along with a video interview and a writing sample, which adds additional value for the institutions, for the teachers, for the companies, even the governments using the test, because they can actually see more than a simple score. And that's one of the most important things that we provide, and why we say that the test is comprehensive, because we give more information to the either institutions or organizations accepting the test. Also, in terms of the efficiency, the platform is fast. Taking the test is less than 1 hour of your time. And it has to be because of the adaptive technologies that we use, meaning that the test is unique and is going to adapt depending on your performance and your English level. All the prompts, all the exercises that you're going to receive will be unique for you depending on your level. Also, receiving the results is efficient because you receive the results in the next 2 days. Imagine that, for example, you have a group of students that they need to take the test this week, and you invite them to take the test today. They could receive the results before Wednesday of this week. In terms of security, the platform is secure. For us, one of the most important things is to ensure that, yes, we are allowing the students to take the test from home. You can take it anywhere, anytime, as long as you follow the security instructions that we give you. I'm going to show a slide in terms of those recommendations in a few minutes, but it's important to mention that Duolingo combines real human proctoring and other technologies in terms of your computer and devices that you use that allow us to ensure that the students are following the instructions. taking the test properly. And just for your knowledge, we record the whole video and audio of the students, and we send that to our proctoring team so we can ensure that the students are following the instructions to receive a certified result. In terms of the accuracy and reliability of the results, we have a very cool website for all the teachers and researchers today present. I'm gonna recommend that later on, so you can go there if you wanna read more about the validity and the reliability of the test. But we do have correlation studies proving that the test is reliable, and it compares to the TOEFL, IBT, and the IELTS. And that's why most of the institutions using the test, those 2,500 that I mentioned at the beginning of the conversation, they're using the exam, for example, for admissions purposes or graduation or even ESL placement as well, because the test is reliable and it also correlates with other tests that they've been using for those purposes before. Here we have a very good slide that I like to show to institutions, governments, all type of organizations that they want to work with us, and they're eager to learn more about the test because it resumes very well the value proposition and why the test was created. First of all, when you see the cost of the other English proficiency test, if I'm not mistaken, for example, in Uzbekistan, the IELTS is very famous. You see that the cost is quite very expensive for any family to acquire those other tests. Our test is $49 US in all the countries. It doesn't change depending on the country. That's very important to mention. The locations, our test is unlimited because you can take it from home. As it is right now, we understand that other companies such as TOEFL and IELTS, they have moved online as well because of the coronavirus, and they're offering some online solutions, but our test was created, and this is our nature because we are trying to create something innovative that could help students anywhere, anytime, without the current context of the coronavirus. So whereas, for example, with the TOEFL, the normal TOEFL and the IELTS, you have to go to the test centers to take those. In terms of the duration and the efficiency of the platform, our test is less than 1 hour of the test taker's time. Whereas the other tests, you have to spend more than 3 hours, and the scenario of taking those exams can be very stressful for the applicants. Remember that I mentioned briefly the beginning of the presentation that we work with adaptive technologies then that allow us to make a more efficient test session for the students. Receiving the results already in less than 2 days, whereas the other options, usually it takes a couple of weeks. Even depending on the country, that can be a challenge. And I have heard of cases in Latin America that the other tests can take up to 2 months to receive results, depending on the country. And sharing our results, we're going to show you a live example in terms of that later on, but sharing our results is free. You don't have to pay additional fees compared with the other solutions that usually they have to pay an additional fee, and that can be more money for the students. And we're talking about that the other tests are over $200, and they ask for more money when you want to share with institutions. Beautiful. So let's go and talk a little bit about the test experience and how is the process to get ready for the test. One of the most common questions that, for example, Sam and we received it last year, that we were traveling around the world and we went to Latin America. I went to Saudi Arabia, for example, and Sam went as well to Europe. And when we were talking about the Duolingo English test with teachers, with schools, with college counselors, one of the most common questions was how to prepare for the test. And one of the cool things about the Duolingo English test is that the test was created to measure your full English proficiency, no matters your background, no matters how you prepare for the test. Yes, we do offer sort of test prep with the practice test that we give for free, so the students can practice as many times and familiarize themselves with the test. But the other models, the previous models with TOEFL, the IELTS, and the other tests, usually they require to spend a lot of time, a lot of money memorizing test models and allowing the students to succeed, and in some cases provide what we call false positive results to institutions accepting those other tests. Whereas our tests, because of the adaptive technology that we use and the convenience of access that we offer, the students can prepare and take the practice test as many times as they want online in order to familiarize themselves with the test and then take the full exam. But how you prepare and how actually you learn English is up to the student. The student can do that with Duolingo. They can do it with their English classes. They can do it with their personal and tutors online if they want to. It doesn't matter your background, because at the end when you take the test, because of those adaptive technologies and AI that we use, the platform is going to be capable of perceiving your English level. I see that Sam turned on his camera. I don't know if you want to add something here before we keep moving forward. Good, okay. So this is what I was just mentioning about getting ready for the Duolingo English test, but also very important is that the students, they need to understand that this is a full English proficiency test. We're gonna measure the 4 skills: speaking, listening, reading, and writing. And the model that we offer with the practice test is so you can see the type of exercises and type of questions that the test has. It's for free. You can take it as many times as you want. And also it's important for them that they understand the test rules that I'm gonna mention in the next couple of slides. And also that they prepare the test environment, because that's usually one of the most common questions afterwards when they're about to take the test, because you need to be in a room with enough light so we can see your face, for example, and also that is quiet enough without any interruptions so you can receive a certified result. Taking the practice test is free. Here you have the website. If any of the participants today want to try the test, you can go to englishtest.duolingo.com/quick in order to take the practice test. Creating an account is free, so you can go there and register if you don't have an account. Or if you have a Duolingo account, feel free to use that one. There is no problem with that or any limitation in terms of that. In terms of preparing the test environment, the students, they need to have a computer with a webcam and a microphone to take the test. Also, you need internet connection in order to access the test and take it, of course. And very importantly, you also need an official ID, such as a driver's license, passport, or national ID. We have a website. Depending on the country, we accept different types of IDs. So the recommendation is that the person taking the test, before taking the test, they read through those instructions. They're first and part of the onboarding process. So you should be allowed to access those before you even purchase your test. But it's very important that they understand that also they need to have a good test environment in terms of a quiet room to take the test. And as I mentioned before, no interruptions. Also, something very important is that the students, depending on the location, they can check the supported browser. So for example, in China, we support 360 and QQ if the students want to take the test from there, because they don't have access to Google Chrome, for example. But if you're a student from Latin America, for example, the recommendation will be taking the test using Mozilla Firefox or Google Chrome, for example. A little bit about the test rules, and we have more information about this on the website that we have for Help Center and candidates interested in taking the test. As you see, englishtest.duolingo.com/FAQ. The students, first of all, they cannot use headsets when they're taking the test. Why? Because the headsets could be connected to a different device. That's important to remark. Also, you cannot be looking around during the test. If there is any sort of interaction with someone, as you see also, no one else can be in the room. If there are any interruptions or interactions, the test will be invalidated. Also, you cannot have plugins or access other programs. If we detect that, also your test is going to be invalidated, and you cannot have interaction with other devices or take notes, because this is an online test and there shouldn't be any need for doing that in terms of certifying your result. It's very important that the students follow those instructions along with the other ones that we provide when you're registering for the test. We have a very good couple of resources that you can access online, and one of them is the overview video. I wanted to put this here because, as I know, many of the teachers and professionals today present, they want to learn more about the test. I will recommend going to the website englishtest.duolingo.com/applicants, and over there you can see a quick overview mentioning what I just mentioned about the onboarding process, the test instructions, the recommendations, and also you can even see a quick introduction showing a couple of the prompts and exercises that we give you during the test. So you can see how will be the experience of someone taking the test and even sharing the results with an accepting institution. Test taker steps, and this part is super easy. If you as a professional, you want to certify your English, or you have a class and you want to recommend a test to your students, basically the first thing that they have to do is registration. They have to go to the Duolingo English Test website, englishtest.duolingo.com/applicants, to register. They click here what it says sign up. Then once you're inside and once you are on the platform, the first option that you're going to have is a practice test. And me, as a former international student and also as a professional, one of the recommendations that I give to all the people, no matter your background, no matter if you're a student or a teacher, we always recommend to take the practice test for free. So you see that the first recommendation, the first option is taking that practice test, and it's completely free. So you go there, you click take practice test, and you can do it as many times as you want. It's only 15 minutes of your time to see how the test reacts and adapts and all of that. Whenever you're ready, you can advance to purchase your test. Purchasing the test is done directly on the website. It's only $49 US, purchasing your exam, and you can do it right there and take the test right away if you want to. And if not, you have your coupon code and your credit added to your account, and you can do it later on. Okay, imagine that you did that and you want to start the test tomorrow. To say an example, you can go there and click take a test and have your experience in the next 60 minutes of your time to certify your English level. And what happens is that in the next 2 days, we receive your results, and we're gonna send the results to you saying the results were certified, here's your grade and everything. And if you as a student and as an applicant or as a professional, you are happy with your results and you want to share those results with any institution, you can go to the final step that you see here that it says share with institution. You're going to have two options. The first one says university. The second one says secondary school. We have over 2,500 institutions around the world accepting the test. For example, if you go here and you click university, you're going to be able to access the full list of institutions accepting the test. And I'm going to give the word to Sam so he can explain more about this part and a little bit more about the accepting institutions and topics to go. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, Octavio. That's a great overview of the test. And as Octavio mentioned, you can share your results with any of these institutions, and there's no additional cost like there might be with other tests. Here is just a smattering of universities in the United States that accept the Duolingo English test for undergraduate degrees. There are over 1,300 programs in the US using the Duolingo English test, but you can see from this slide, we have universities, both large and small. The majority of these are highly selective universities, but there are also less selective universities in pretty much every state in the United States, from community college to public flagship universities like the University of Oregon and Iowa State University here. For those of you who already have your bachelor's degree and you're seeking graduate degrees, the next slide will show you just a few of the US programs accepting the Duolingo English test for graduate programs. And there's over a couple hundred here as well around the world accepting the test. So you see large state universities like Indiana University or Louisiana State University, and then large private universities like NYU and TCU and Vanderbilt. The englishtest.duolingo.com/institutions is where you can search, and you can search up universities by name or by location. Not just in the US, but also in Canada, here are some of the universities that are accepting the test. To date in Canada and the UK, we have over 200 accepting the test, but you'll see here from large prestigious universities that are accepting the test, and some that you probably have not heard of in both the UK and Canada. Additionally, if you go to the institutions page at Duolingo English Test, you will see when you type in Uzbekistan that there are 5 institutions currently accepting the test in Uzbekistan as well. And so we're very excited about that opportunity for you to potentially take the test or advise people to take the test to travel abroad or to stay in Uzbekistan. If you go to the next slide, you will see the link that says where to go, and over 2,500 programs around the world are accepting the test. Not just undergraduate and postgraduate, but secondary schools around the world and some businesses around the world are also using the Duolingo English test. We're going to go over a little bit of the test overview and talk about a little bit more about why these universities are accepting the test. As Octavio mentioned, the very first and most important thing is that when you register, you're prepared. And so you're prepared to take the test. You have a national government ID, just like you would if you went to a test center and handed the ID over. You're taking a photo of the ID and a photo of your face in order to start the test process. Once you've onboarded, you know that you have your room set up, you know that you have everything you need to do, you start the computer adaptive section of the test. Here, there are many different integrated item types, which Dr. Jeff LaFleur will speak to. But as you take this computer adaptive section of the test, every time you submit your answer, we're going to grade that instantaneously, and based on whether or not you answered correctly or incorrectly, the next question will be incrementally harder or easier so that we can continue to hone in and ascertain exactly what your English level is according to the CEFR. After you've done the computer adaptive section of the test, you get to a video interview and written sample section. This section is for the university specifically, and this section is ungraded. So the computer adaptive section has your grade, and then we get to this section. In the video interview and in the written sample, what you have is you have 2 prompts to choose from, and you choose the prompt, and then you have 3 minutes to speak, and then you get 2 new prompts, and you choose the prompt that you'd like to answer, and you have 5 minutes to write your answer. These are both spontaneous. These are questions that you're not prepared for, but they are questions that will help give a university a little bit more insight on how you process, who you are as a person, who you are as an applicant, and what you can produce spontaneously, both in speaking and written form. The universities get the video and the written sample. You also have access to the video and the written sample so that you can look at what you've produced and what you can get excited about. The universities like to take the test because of that, but they also, perfect Octavio, they also like this fact that the test is accessible to you all, and that in 60 minutes you can take a test. We're gonna proctor the test for 2 days before we'll send you results. After you get your results, you can share them, as Octavio said, you can share them right away, or you can wait a couple weeks and share your results again at another time. You can also go back in and review your scores and review your video and your written sample. The next slide is about the test design and the item types. And for that, I'm going to pass it over to Dr. Jeff LaFleur to explain each of those item types and how the test was designed.
Thanks, Sam. Right, let's start with test design. So the test was designed using a mix of language assessment experts and artificial intelligence or machine learning. And so what this means is that we took a large set of language data, such as words and passages, and the experts assigned them levels that were reflective of the CEFR levels, right? A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, C2. Then we ran those passages and those vocabulary words through 2 separate models, which learned the linguistic features of the passages and words that separated them at the different CEFR levels. And through that process, then we created an algorithm that we could apply to more unlabeled data and then assign those to difficulty levels. And so this is how we were effectively able to create a very large item pool, which is important for the next point, computer adaptive testing. So computer adaptive testing, for those who aren't familiar about it, you can think of this as like test assembly on the fly. Each test taker takes 4 test items. They're not all the same, but they're all 4 of increasing difficulty. And then after that 4th item, the test creates what's called a an estimate of the test taker's proficiency, a provisional estimate. And based on that estimate, then the test goes in and grabs an item type that will challenge the test taker. It won't be too hard, it won't be too easy. It is estimated to be right about at the same difficulty level as the test taker's proficiency level, right? And then the test taker answers that item. And then after that stage, with each item type, the test updates its estimate of the test taker's proficiency and adjusts the difficulty of the test accordingly so that we can arrive at an accurate estimate of the test taker's ability at the end of the test in a shorter amount of time. The large item type, our large item bank is important so that we don't have overexposed items. And we'll come to that in a few slides to talk about that. We've got 7 different item types on the test. And I'm going to talk about each in turn. The first is the yes, no vocabulary items. There's 2 variants, one where test takers see the words and one where they click on a button to hear the words. And in this task, test takers have to discriminate between real English words and English-like pseudo words that are, morphologically similar to real English words, but are not English words. And so, these are measures of vocabulary size, and they also are very predictive of, writing ability and reading ability for the written variant, and then of listening and speaking ability for the audio variant. And the next test item, the C test, this is a measure of reading ability and to some extent, discourse knowledge, and it's also predictive of writing ability. In this task, test takers read a passage, and with this passage, the first sentence and the last sentence are completely intact, and the sentences in between, about every other word is damaged, and the test taker has to repair all of the damaged words by completing the blanks in the passage. And then we have a dictation task, which measures listening ability and to a certain extent writing ability as well. And this is a traditional dictation task that all of you are probably familiar with, where you hear a sentence and then you transcribe it by typing it with your computer keyboard. We also have an enlisted speech task where test takers read aloud a passage that is, in text in front of them, and they record their response by reading it out loud. And this measures reading and speaking ability. And then finally, we have long form speaking and writing tasks. So test takers will have to for the writing, test takers will have to describe a picture and also respond to a prompt. And then the same for speaking, they'll have to describe a picture and respond to an independent prompt as well. And these prompts will either ask them to, describe an event, recount a story, or argue a point, or argue an opinion of theirs. Okay, and now I'm going to dive in a bit about sort of like item security and talk a little bit about how we keep our items secure and how we ensure a robust and secure test certification process. For item security, we do have thousands and thousands of items for each item type. And because the item bank is so large, it would take, a large number of attempts, like more than 1,000, for a student to see a repeated question. And given the fact that you can only take the test twice in 30-day period, in order to do 1,000 attempts, it would take about 41 years, which, as it says on the slide, by then any questions they had seen would be long retired. We also leverage, in addition to using AI to create the tests, we leverage AI to help us with security. So we use like face and voice for ID verification and voice recognition. We look at keystroke and mouse biometrics, and then as well as eye tracking and lip syncing. All of this is to ensure that the person who is taking the test is who they say they are, both at the beginning, middle, and end of the test, throughout the whole testing experience. And so in addition to this AI security, which takes the first pass at reviewing the test, we have at minimum 2 rounds of human proctoring. All right, Octavio, if we can jump to the next slide. Right, so each session is reviewed at least twice individually by 2 trained proctors, trained by us after the test is completed. And so, despite the fact that we might not be in the room with them, this ratio is a better ratio than, say, a test center ratio where it's like one person usually to about 25 people in the test center. And so finally, a lot of what we've talked about, more details can be found on our security website. At the bottom of that page, there's a nice PDF that describes our security proctoring and accommodations for people with disabilities, those procedures and practices. And then on the right-hand side of the slide, if you go to the research page, you'll be able to find white papers and a peer-reviewed journal about the research behind the test. And I think, yeah, that's it.
Yes, thank you for your time. Thank you. Feel free to send your questions via the chat so we can go over those. And we're gonna be reviewing those in a few. Sam, you want to take control of the questions, because I'm sharing my screen here.
And I can. I'm looking at the questions right now. Jeff, I'm not sure. This question, you might be able to flesh it out. Can you tell the best structure for the writing part?
So the structure, like I said, the structure is going to vary a bit. For the writing, each test taker will see, we'll have to describe 3 pictures. These are 3 separate tasks of increasing difficulty. And so, being able to make sure you can, use descriptive language and describe things well would help. And then at the end, each test taker will get a independent prompt that is selected based on their provisional estimate of ability, and sort of like what they talk about, the content of the question and what they're asked to do will vary depending on their estimate of ability. So, a lot of the maybe easier item types are more descriptive in nature, whereas more difficult ones might be asking them to take a side of an argument, right? Or to share their opinion and give reasons why. Yeah.
Awesome, that makes sense. Another question here is how do I know how to calculate the score in speaking and writing? And I'm not sure if that's how to understand what your score might look like in comparison to other tests that you might know, or if that question is more about how to determine how it's actually scored. And if you want to talk about the machine learning there, Jeff, I'm not sure what way that's going.
Sure. So for the speaking and writing, they are scored entirely by the machine learning algorithms, and these take into account things like grammatical complexity, lexical sophistication, relevance to the task, fluency and accuracy features. And these were created and then evaluated based on actual people's judgments of the same tasks. So before we released this, we asked people to score over 3,000 writing samples and over 3,000 speaking samples on similar constructs. And then we evaluated how well the machine was doing against the human scored samples. And those agreement coefficients are at like 0.79, 0.78 for Cohen's kappa, which is a measure of agreement that takes out, or in fact, accounts for agreement due to chance, which means it is always a little bit lower than a Pearson's R. And those are pretty good coefficients, those Cohen's kappa, the 0.79, 0.78. And those coefficients, I might be off a little bit on those because it's been a while since I've looked at it, but those are also listed in the technical manual, which can be found on the research webpage.
Awesome, thanks. There's a question here about Duolingo English test accepted by the Canadian Embassy, and I'll answer that question here from 2 different ways. For the Canadian visa process, not a study permit, the Canadian visa process requires an IELTS exam. However, to go to university in Canada at a Canadian university that accepts the Duolingo English test, A study permit does not require an English language assessment, and a study permit and the individuals at the Canadian Embassy should follow this protocol, which is a study permit does not need an English language test. They will rely on what the university accepts. So the best recommendation to give to individuals going to the embassy with their Duolingo English test score, and it's not just the best recommendation for going to the embassy with the Duolingo English test, it's always the best recommendation is to print off and have printed off the requirements of the university. And if Duolingo English test is listed there, you have that. You could also print off the IRCC, which is the Immigration and Refugee Group for Canada. And print off there that they also say for study permits, you do not need an English language test, to help remind the consulate that while IELTS is required for regular immigration, for study permits, the Duolingo English test does suffice. Next question here, is there any documentation for the prep test? Like, is there any information and resources to help somebody understand more about the free test prep, the free practice test?
So one of the recommendations, and I'm doing my best to follow what you guys are saying and showing the resources that we have on the website and everything. For candidates, professionals, and people who want to take the test, we have the Duolingo English Test Help Center that you can go there and search, and any questions that you may have, probably you're going to find it here. Also, if you want to speak with one of our live chat customer agents, you can click here where it says help and you can connect with us. But actually, all you have to do is go to the Duolingo English Test website, as I mentioned before, in order to register and be able to access the free practice test. So I'm just gonna do here a quick example. I'm gonna log in with my account, and the website is gonna take you to something like this. It's not working, just a second.
The other question related to the practice test is, does the practice test have every item type? Does it have dictation, elicited speech? Does it have all item types, Octavio?
Yes, we try to show you a model of the full test so you can have a good preparation, and when you take the full test, it's not something completely new and you get fully stressed, because we understand that preparation is very important, and that's why we give you the possibility to take the practice test completely free as many times as you want. So here we are. As I mentioned before, when you access your main dashboard, you're able to see here the first option, that is the practice test. But currently, we don't offer like any books or download materials that you can download from the website. And that's because of test security and the test item types and all of that. But you could actually access this completely free. And if you want to spend a week or a month or a year taking the practice test, you could actually do it completely free.
On the practice test, you will see the C test. Jeff, do you want to explain any ideas on the best way to practice the C test?
Sure. I don't know if I have a great answer for this. I don't know if there's any one best way to practice, but I think that, you know, any types of activities that you would do to improve your reading ability in general would help, such as like extensive reading, or any other type of reading practice that you might do in your language learning classrooms as well.
Awesome. Is the Duolingo English test completely equal to IELTS?
So I could take this one. I would say sort of, maybe not completely. You know, at the end of the day, we are both giving a score to represent English language ability. And so in that respect, we correlate with them at about 0.78 using Pearson's R, and we have a concordance table with them, but we do have different tasks, right? You know, our measure of reading ability is a C test, whereas the IELTS measure of reading ability is a more traditional, like, discrete point test, where you read a passage and answer questions like main ideas. And I think their writing questions are a little bit different than ours too. So they're a little bit different, but we are both trying to get at the same measure of English language proficiency.
I like to say for this part that yes, we are correlated, but each test is unique in its own way. So for example, if you compare as well TOEFL and IELTS, you will see many things as equal, but some differences as well. And that happens between Duolingo, IELTS, Duolingo, TOEFL, TOEFL and IELTS, and we can keep going.
Awesome. Octavio, will you speak a little bit about what happens if the test stops while you're in the middle of the test, like you have bad internet connection?
Yes, one of the cool things about our platform is that, first of all, if you're having any difficulties while you're taking the test, as I mentioned before, you can contact our customer support and you can click here where it says help. And let me just go here, minimize this. Let me put, for example, you will see here a live chat option in case that you need to get in touch with us. And this is something that we offer Monday through Friday during business hours, and you can get in touch with us. But one of the functionalities that the platform offers is that if we detect that you're having some internet problems, or imagine that there was an outage in your location or something, you automatically receive a credit, and that credit is added to your account. And you can retake the test in the next couple of days without any limitations, and you won't be in the need of paying for the test again. Of course, that if this happens in consecutive occasions, you will need to get in touch with support in order to solve the problem. But usually if you're taking the test and it's the first time that happens, as I just mentioned, you're going to receive that credit automatically, so you can retake the test for free.
Awesome, thank you. I'm not sure who wants to tackle this one. We all could probably. How is it that the Duolingo English test is cheaper than IELTS and TOEFL? I mean, I can answer it a little bit, and Jeff can probably add on to it.
Sure, you give your answer, Sam, and then I'll add on to anything else. Yeah.
Sounds good. I mean, you can see here on the slide that Octavio is showing that we are about a quarter of the price of TOEFL and IELTS. One of the things to take into consideration is that depending on the city that TOEFL and IELTS are being tested in, that price can be anywhere from 200 to 275 US dollars. So a lot of the fees that you're paying when you're covering the cost of the TOEFL, much of that is the lights, the electricity, the paying of staff to be present at 6 in the morning to prepare for the test. So there's costs that are fixed, and those are not a part of the Duolingo English test because you're taking the Duolingo English test at your own home. And so there's no additional fee to pay for that. There's like 5 other ways we can go on this, and I'll let Jeff speak to a couple of them.
Sure. So I'll tackle it from a test development and scoring point of view. What we've done is we've sort of twisted the current model a bit in terms of the role that people play in test development, scoring, administration, and score reporting. So instead of having people develop the items and then piloting them on a large number of people, right, we have selected or gathered a lot of natural language texts that we then had people, like this is like human in the loop machine learning, we had people help identify their difficulty, and then we leveraged machine learning on a larger set of items in order to project them to a difficulty scale that is used in the adaptive administration. And then similarly for test administration and for scoring, instead of having a proctor there the entire time, it is proctored asynchronously afterwards by 2 people, and it after a layer of AI or ML that raises flags for the proctors at various points along the administration process for them to investigate. And finally, with the scoring, right, that's human in the loop in the sense that it is all automatically scored. But prior to that, we used people's ratings on these tasks to help calibrate the machine. And once we have that, then we can leverage that on a large number of responses, right? So we're doing everything. And then also the item types are selected in such a way that make them, possible to administer. I think this is an important part too, possible to administer and score over like low bandwidth internet connections. So it's not like this test can only be taken where you have high bandwidth internet connections. You can also take it with a low bandwidth internet connection as well.
Awesome. Another question is there a course to learn for the test? And as Octavio's mentioned, the free practice test is the best way to go about to learn a little bit more about how this test works. But as we're continuing to teach and English on the Duolingo app, I encourage you to check that out, but that's not going to be quite enough to score what you need for a university yet. And so any other ways that you are constantly growing in your English language or teaching people how to read better, or write better, speak better, or listen better is a good approach to take to learn how to prepare for the test. A last question here is, the test was new, but I still got 120. Is that a good score? So Octavio, if you want to show just right there what a 120 looks like in the description, but we can also show down here, according to the CEFR and the IELTS and TOEFL tests, what a 120 looks like, roughly a 7 on the IELTS. And I would say that the vast majority of universities use a 120 or lower. Yale University here has a Duolingo English test score of at least 120. So at 120, you've met the cutoff for Yale University on the Duolingo English test. There are other universities that have the minimum at a 105, and there are some that have it at a 125. But 120 is a very good score. How many days can I take the test if my results are insufficient for universities? Octavio, do you want to tackle that? How many times can you take the test?
Yes. So, and related with the previous point, that's one of the most important things to understand your scores and to understand as well what are the requirements on the institution's end. So, for example, if you want to apply to Yale, they are requiring 120. But imagine that you take the test and you don't like your results, you think that you can perform better and you want to prepare. We give the possibility for the candidates to take 2 Duolingo English tests every 30 days. And you can take the third test a month later from the first test date. So imagine that you take it today. Today is the 20, what date is today? The 31st. Sorry, I was thinking about Friday last week. So you will be able to take it next month, same date, okay?
All right. That appears to be the last of the questions.
I want to make a side note here because I know that many of the people today present, you are teachers or you represent institutions. As Sam mentioned before, the Duolingo English test is accepted internationally. If you think that this is something that either you would like to recommend to your students or you would like to register your institution as an accepting institution, it's completely free to accept results, and it's completely free to include the name of the institution in this list of accepting institutions. So feel free to go to the institutional website that we have, that is englishtest.duolingo.com/edu. And over there, you can just simple get in touch with us. You can click here, get started, and complete the form and get in touch with us in case that you would like to have access and register your institution completely free. We're happy to provide the resources so you can invite your students and, more importantly, receive the results of your students, because if you don't have access to this account, you won't be able to watch, for example, the video interview and writing samples that we were mentioning during the presentation. But besides that, thank you very much for your time. I don't know if you have any other questions coming in, Sam, in regards to this, or we good?
That's all the questions. So good to be with you guys today. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for the great team. I was really impressed how you could integrate cutting edge technologies into test design, right? And I think it is something very new and very innovative. I hope that many people will take this opportunity because it's efficient, it's modern, and cost effective, right? So, and it's fast. So thank you so much for talking to us today. So our video will be saved on our YouTube channel. So I'm sure many more people will be able to watch it later and refer to it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day. Bye.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.